What is going on, everybody? I know it's been a while since I posted about this reef tank. A few introductions just before we start rolling the footage on just the overall process. This has been quite the learning experience on this nano reef. It is a 20-gallon UNS all-in-one tank. It's a 60A, I believe the model number is. Um, Definitely took the leap of faith into the saltwater side. And I'm very glad I did because it's been very rewarding and very educational. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, a lot of very good resources, combing a lot of forums. And over this past almost 10 to 11 months now, it has been a great experience overall, but it did come with its challenges. So we can go ahead and start rolling the footage. But once the tank got set up, I did add some bacteria, some bottled bacteria. Probably not the best in hindsight. I probably would have started off with real live rock, maybe even some um, sand or rubble rock that was from maybe like aquabiomics or something like that. But after waiting a few weeks, I did throw some tester corals in um, once I thought the time was right. And you'll notice I do have two. I did have a power. I started with a single power head, but I ended up going through a lot of equipment changes, even changing the lighting, trying various skimmers. Really difficult to find good, decent equipment for nanos. And in hindsight, it is better to fully plan a build going forward. Not that I necessarily regret this 60A platform, but in hindsight, I probably would have went with a maybe 30-ish gallon, but maybe drilled it for a sump. I know the all-in-one tanks are very popular, but there's some limitations with that as far as what equipment you could run in the tank. Me personally, it was really hard to find a good skimmer that can fit in the back compartment. I tried running a fuge. There's a lot of different experimentation that was going on with this tank. Obviously, it is my first saltwater experience, so these are all definitely things to note for any future ongoing builds or plans for the tank. And at first, it was mainly going to be a softy tank. Obviously, here you could see I did add some kind of tester frags, kind of testing the waters. I did add some Zoas and I believe some GSP at first with like a hammer and maybe like an easy encrusting coral. Now, the experience after this, things, took a pretty quick turn. I mean, things were going well in the beginning, right? The corals initially were looking great, so I started adding more and more. There was a few mishaps during the ugly phase, um, and I unfortunately ended up losing an anemone. Um, and there was a couple mistakes made on my end. There was also some equipment failures. I also was dealing with a power outage that lasted an extended period of time, and I was unprepared for that. So I did end up losing a few corals that I later on replaced whatever I thought that I really wanted. Obviously, it's unfortunate, but I'm a little bit more prepared for that now, and I'll be documenting that in a future video as far as like battery backups on the system. But the rock structure changed a few times. I wasn't happy with the initial scape. It was just very, passe. But I went with more of like a negative look on the aquascape. And around this time, I started dealing with a lot of green hair algae, like a ton. And there was even a short period of time where I was dealing with green hair, cyano, and on and off dinoflagellin outbreaks. Uh, the nutrients did bottom out quite a bit. Obviously, in the early stages of a tank, there's not much like really carbon buildup. There's not a lot of, you know, the microbiome is not diverse and it's not balanced and mature. So this was a pretty hard waiting period. As far as livestock goes, I did have some issues with that as well. You'll see in the footage here that I do have a blue damsel, pair of clowns, tail spotted blenny. The damsel at first was okay, but he started to get pretty aggressive, and I know that he's probably should not be stocked in this tank, so I did end up rehoming him. A couple of things that I do believe helped with the tank is I did add some freshwater mollies for a period of time to help take care of the algae, and they actually were eating quite a bit of it. And I drip acclimated them over 24 hours to salt water, and they helped a lot. Another thing was the add addition of pods. And I was running a fuge on this tank for a short period of time, but I just found that at the time I was running it, I felt like it was just counterproductive. It was out competing, and I was dealing with like zero phosphates for quite a while. So that was an issue as well. And then I was overfeeding, and I'm pretty sure that's when I started getting a lot of cyano. There was probably in a buildup of organics in the tank. So I ended up pulling the fuge, doing some water changes, and just letting things kind of coast and balance out. The first 6 months of this tank were just really brutal. There was a lot of setbacks. I did mention a few events, but I did have some equipment failures as well that came after the power outage. Unfortunately, one of them probably could have been avoided with a heater. But yes, this tank does have a heater controller, but there was some mishaps, and the tank did not necessarily get completely cooked, but it was at like 83, 84 degrees for quite a while. It could have went a little bit higher because at the time I didn't have a monitoring system to indicate anything was an issue until I went and investigated, why is the tank not looking so great? And, did some further investigation and found out what the issue was. Other than that, um, another setback, I think, in hindsight was changing the rockscape up. I feel like it kind of sent the tank into another cycle, and kind of did set the tank back a little bit. There was also another mishap with Alpha Reef. A dosing pump basically did not get programmed correctly and dumped almost the entire dosing container into the tank, which then led to a massive alkalinity spike. And astonishingly, I think I only lost like a hammer at that time and maybe a torch. And another torch was like on the brink, and it slowly came back over the next few months, and now it's like one of the best looking torches in the tank, which is pretty surprising. Almost like that stress event, coming out of that made it a little stronger, and it's actually almost splitting now, so that's a good sign. In the beginning, this tank was mainly just going to be LPS and softies, but I did try out some SPS, and currently now the tank does have some acrofrags now that everything's a lot more balanced. I was starting with Alpha Reef, but I was having like pH issues, and I was having issues with dialing and the alkalinity. The tank was a little bit younger at the time, and there wasn't a lot of bioload, so I ended up switching over to calc in the top off, and it's been a better experience overall so far. I'm having a lot better stability with the pH, and I'm just noticing like the tank is just a lot. Things are fluffier. There's better growth with the encrusters. I was running Alpha Reef with calc for a short period of time, but I don't think that is the best strategy. There could be some things that can cause like some precipitation with some elements, and I'm not too sure the long term success with that. Have heard some issues with that, but one thing that I want to get a little bit more diligent about is doing like weekly, like full blown testing, because right now I am running a Trident, but I'm kind of relying on that a little bit too much. So I am calibrating that from time to time, but I need to get a little bit better at that. Um, Overall, um, future plans for this tank, obviously, it's being a little bit more patient and letting the tank mature more is definitely what I'm going for, but I might end up pulling some of the LPS out of this tank and mainly sticking with acros and maybe just some Zoa. Some of the biggest takeaways from this tank would definitely be livestock planning, um, obviously understanding where could go what. So placement was a big learning curve. The lighting was also a learning curve. I was struggling with. I was using Kessel A80s in the beginning, and I ended up switching over to two Kessel 360Xs, but they are pretty high off the water surface, and they are also turned down quite a bit. I'll actually throw in some par readings that I took in various locations of the tank. But overall, I will be trying to give some better updates on this tank as things progress. And I'm just really excited for the future of this just whole hobby in general. Saltwater has just been amazing, and there's nothing that is, it's very challenging, right? So it's very rewarding. There's still a lot to learn. This top down view is just one of my favorites. But definitely a great experience, great learning experience. And like I did start a few other tanks since this one, so there'll be some more projects on the way. One is a Pico, and then one is this 15-gallon Peninsula behind me from Waterbox. This is probably mainly going to be a LPS tank, and we'll see what the plans are for the 6 gallon. I did get a flat six from Reef Casa, so I'm excited to get that set up here in the future. But I'll be trying to make some more videos on this tank as it matures. And thanks for watching.